Welcome to another edition of the Gridiron Report. I'm Jared Johnson, and I thought I actually am using a mailbag question as a Gridiron Report. I thought it was such a good question, it deserved its own video, and we're going to look at the 2020 schedule. And this question comes from Teeny Pepper, who basically he says this year's football schedule is pretty brutal. He says if we miss a bowl again, is Wells on the hot seat, or will he be given some extra leash based on what he inherited? Well, I guess it depends on how you look at it, on if it's pretty brutal. The home games are difficult. They are probably your toughest games. But let's dive into this schedule game by game and just kind of talk about it. All right, you start off the season at UTEP September 5th. If everything starts off on schedule. Bottom line is with UTEP, they're one of the worst teams in Division I football. They get up to play Texas Tech out there in El Paso. So I don't want to say it's just going to be easy, but I mean, come on. If you don't beat UTEP, what are we even talking about? So that should be 1-0. Alabama State at home opener. I mean, you want to talk about a charged atmosphere. It should be electric. I think that will probably be the first Texas Tech sporting event on campus since all the coronavirus stuff happened back in March and everything was shut down. So, I mean, look, Alabama State was a good FCS school, but it's an FCS school. Tech should win that. Should start off 2-0. Then you have Arizona at home after, arguably the most disappointing result last year at Arizona, other than maybe Kansas, where really the schedule didn't show. Or the final score didn't really show how bad of a butt whooping it was. I think Arizona ended up winning 28-14. And what's funny is that Tech had a lead in the second half, but Arizona just really got after them from really the middle of the third quarter all the way on and dominated that game. But look, Arizona lost, Khalil Tate at quarterback, who was really, he was the engine that made that whole offense go. He's the type of guy that when he leaves, I'm sure that some of the fan base will be like, oh, we got this other quarterback, he's going to run more of a classic offense, and they'll be talking about that. But no, Khalil Tate was just a really dangerous threat with his legs, and he can make some plays with his arm. I, for one, in terms of if you're hoping Texas Tech beats Arizona, you should be glad Khalil Tate's gone. Now, Tech's still going to have to step up. I think it's slightly more than a coin toss in Tech's favor. You want to get to a bowl game. If you want to get to at least 6 wins, in my opinion, Tech has to beat Arizona. And I think they will. I don't think it's going to be a blowout or anything, but I think they'll win that game. All right, now next up, I actually think this may be the most difficult game on the schedule, which I think a lot of people will probably disagree. But at Iowa State's going to be a top 20 preseason ranked team by most publications. I think Matt Campbell's one of the best coaches. I think probably Matt Campbell is the best coach in the Big 12, honestly. I think I would take him and Gary Patterson. I would take Matt Campbell probably over anybody. That guy's, what he's done at Iowa State has been amazing. Brock Purdy, the quarterback, I'm a huge fan. I think he's one of the better quarterbacks in the conference. I think those two as a combo make them really tough, and just the way that program is the tough, hard-nosed type of program that it is. Matt Campbell has just dominated Texas Tech 4-0. The average margin of victory is double digits. I think that's going to be a really tough game for Tech. I think that's a loss for sure. All right, and then you come back home and you host West Virginia. I'm conflicted about West Virginia because they're not going to be that good, but they were a lot better last year after Jarrett Dagey, yes, from Lubbock Cooper, Seth Dagey's brother. Jarrett Dagey really helped turn that not season around, but he made them competitive again, or the team definitely played better with him at quarterback. They won a couple of good games late last year, and they were in every game, I believe, that he started. So Tech beat West Virginia before Dagey took over, and I don't know, that may have been a different story if Dagey had played that game. So we'll have to see. To me, that's a coin toss game. It's at home. You hope Tech can win that. Okay, then you have Baylor on a Thursday, and this is 12 days after that West Virginia game. So you have a bye, then you play on a Thursday. Right now I got to say Baylor would win that game. Now, of course, you take them to overtime there last year when they, one of their best seasons ever. Now you get them at home on a Thursday night, which who knows what kind of crowd is going to be allowed. If it's going to be 50%, 25%, full, zero, I don't know. But if the crowd is there, you would think that'd be a charged atmosphere on Thursday night, prime time and all that. All right, so, coin toss. All right, I'll say between, so there's two coin tosses there. I'll say you get one of those between West Virginia and Baylor. So at that point, you're 4-1. All right. And Texas at home, used to be at Jones. You were good for, if you played Texas at home, you would expect to win that game, which sounds crazy. But for most of my time following Texas Tech since, I don't know, mid-90s or whatever, they played Texas really close and won some big games. You either beat Texas or A&M at home almost every year, it seemed like, for the past 30 years or so. That just hadn't been the case here recently. Actually, this has been more of whoever's on the road wins recently, but I got to give it to Texas here. I think you dropped to 4-2, so you're 4-2 in the first half. That's great. You'll take that. But boy, the second half of the schedule is much tougher. All right, then you go Halloween a week later at Oklahoma State. Okay, and you've beaten Oklahoma State each of the last 2 years. So with that in mind, you got to think, okay, hey, Tech can beat these guys. But man, Oklahoma State, they bring a lot of weapons. All-American receiver, All-American running back. I think Spencer Sanders is a good quarterback. I'm going to have to give it to Oklahoma State since it's there in Stillwater. So that's Stillwater. That's 4-3. All right, then at Kansas State, Tech just does not play well at Kansas State. I think you go to 4-4. Kansas at home. Up until last year, Tech always beat Kansas. I think I got to give Kansas a lot of credit for staying in it and playing tough last year. But at the same time, Tech made a series of blunders too that kept Kansas in it there. I think Tech looks for some revenge. I think they win. They move to 5-4 on the season. All right, at TCU. Okay, so this is where, if I'm calling an upset, this is it. Okay, because for whatever reason, Tech and TCU, Tech plays up to play TCU, other than that infamous fireworks game where it was like 82-27 or whatever. Since TCU's been in the Big 12, Tech has really played well against TCU. I think it's because a lot of the players are from the Metroplex. They know each other. It's a big rivalry. They actually like to play in the Metroplex. I believe Tech has won the last 3 times in Fort Worth, I believe. Either last 3 or the last 2. The road teams won the last 5 or 6 games in this series. So I think Tech's going to go in there and steal one and get that 6th victory. All right, and then they return home for the regular season finale, and that's against Oklahoma. And I think they get beat. I think Oklahoma's not. I actually think Iowa State's going to win the Big 12 this year, which is not a very popular pick. But I think Oklahoma will be second. They'll be right there, and but I think Oklahoma whips Tech pretty soundly here in the home finale. But that gives Tech 6 wins. That puts them in a bowl game, and I think that's huge. Now, the second part of that question is, if Texas Tech does not get to a bowl game this upcoming year, will Matt Wells be on the hot seat? And my answer is yeah, because I don't mean that it's be like, oh, you would definitely be fired if you have a bad season in your 3rd year. But then again, if you're in your first 3 years, you don't make a bowl game. We're not talking about win 8 games or win 9 games, but just the bottom, the floor, the floor for mediocrity in college football is just winning half your games and going to a bowl game. It's not really that difficult, especially when you play, a couple of cream puffs to start the season. So, I think the expectations will be if they don't get to 6 wins, if they only get to 4 or 5 again, then there's going to be a lot of heat on Matt Wells for a number of reasons. One, this was all Kirby Hocutt's baby and bringing Matt Wells in. There was a lot of people who were underwhelmed and kind of like, what are we doing here? 2, Tech fans are just fed up with losing. It's been, a decade of really bad football after a long time of good football, respectability. Like I said, even under Spike Dykes back in the day, they were good for a big upset of A&M or UT, which would kind of save the season for Tech fans. You had fun. There hadn't been a lot of fun in the fan base following football. Everything else, tons of fun. But football, and this is Texas, we're talking about college sports, which football is king, hadn't been a lot of fun. So there'll be a lot of heat on Matt Wells if they don't go to a bowl game next year. And I think you've seen the recruiting with a lot of these additions, which we mentioned in the first question, kind of speak to that they're trying to fix this roster, which, yes, it was a poorly managed roster that he inherited, that Matt Wells and staff inherited. But they've been doing a lot to try and address that, and so that they can win now enough to get to where they have their program in place and they can win big later. We'll see if they get there or not. This is a big season. If they don't make it then yeah, by season 3, I think they're going to have to at least get to a bowl game, which isn't saying a ton in college football. Well, that's the way I see the 2020 schedule playing out. I really appreciate you watching, and until next time.